This book is grotesque, it's funny, and for reasons that you might not suspect, it is heartbreaking. Welcome to another paperback journey where today we're going to be diving into the captivating dilemma of My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This book tells the story of Korede, who is a good person. She is a dutiful nurse until she becomes the unwilling accomplice in her sister, Ayoola's, desire for murder. As the body count rises, Korede has to grapple with the balance between the loyalty that she has for her sister and her ideas of what is right and what is wrong. The murders are, they're pretty gruesome, but Braithwaite is able to inject a sense of levity with the humor that she implements. Braithwaite is a very funny writer, in my opinion. That is something that really stands out. Very witty. She's able to do this without undermining the suspense or the seriousness of the crimes that are being committed. I'm a big fan of gallows humor anyway, so that just won me over straight away. The characters are well developed. They're deeply flawed. Ayoola is a straight up remorseless sociopath, which just, it makes her terrifying. As the story unfolds, it makes you ask the question, how would I handle this situation? And if you have younger siblings that you grew up feeling protective of and having that just growing up with that role as the watcher and the protector in the same way that Korede did over Ayoola, then it's going to be a really interesting question for you to grapple with as well. What would I do in this situation with my lovely little sister that I love so much? I've got two little sisters myself. And so, you know, I grew up looking out for them, and it was something that was constantly running in the back of my mind. What would I do? What would I do if this was my lovely little sister? I mean, not so lovely in this scenario, but you know, it's especially interesting in this case because Korede is a nurse. And so it adds an extra layer of irony to the situation. And here she is, helping her sister to end people's lives. It's just crazy. Another thing I really liked and that was really fresh about this book is the Nigerian setting. Fresh to me anyway. This is actually the first book that I've ever read that was set in Nigeria. This book is set in Lagos, and one of the things that really stood out to me is how corrupt the police are portrayed in this book. And that just adds another layer of terror and a feeling of helplessness. There's no one that Korede can really turn to. And I thought that was really effective. And actually, this book is something that, according to the author, could only really be told in Nigeria, or at least not in America or England. And actually, I've got a direct quote here from the author, from Braithwaite. She says, "I think it would be a lot harder to get away with the sorts of things Ayoola gets away with in, for example, the United States. Also in Nigeria, we prioritize family, and not just the nuclear family, cousins and second cousins and uncles and aunties whom you have no idea how or if they are even related to you. And we believe strongly in the responsibility of a firstborn. Korede's plight would flourish here, knowing that Korede has all the responsibilities, but no one that she can lean on, makes the world feel so unfair. It's claustrophobic in a strange way. She's having to do all the heavy lifting. No one's taking any responsibility, and there is a strong, strong sense of injustice in this book. This book also is very short, and it has a kind of rapid-fire writing style that propels the narrative forward. And even the chapter titles are really brief, just single words. Bleach, body, heat, questions. And each of these chapters keep the story moving along with a kind of rhythm, but every so often the rhythm just hits an offbeat and the pacing feels a little bit off. Every so often, not very often, but just every so often you think, this is dragging on a bit too long, or this was too short. But for the most part, The rhythm is consistent. One of the other things that I felt could have done with a bit more fleshing out was the motivations behind the murders. Sometimes, because I didn't know what the motivations were, sometimes they felt a little bit empty. But it was okay because, in my opinion, Korede was the more interesting character anyway. Now, this is the part of the review where I'm going to dive into spoiler territory, so just a clear warning. And then I'm also going to give ratings on various aspects of the book. So if you haven't already read this book, I would suggest that you subscribe to this channel, and then you can come back and we can discuss the plot points that I found to be the most interesting. So the book starts off with a single paragraph, and it is this. Ayoola summons me with these words. Korede, I killed him. I had hoped I would never hear those words again. Congratulations. Congratulations. That's how you start a book. Very good. I loved every scene where Ayoola was dancing around and being silly on social media. It really painted the picture, as I said, of a kind of remorseless sociopath. And what fascinated me was seeing how Korede reacted to that. It's slowly dawning on her that maybe her sister is actually a monster. And that's something that you never want to admit to your own self about your siblings, who you love, who you feel protective of. But it starts to sort of get to the point where Korede, she can't deny it any longer. She's watching her sister dancing around on TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media she uses. And it's scary. And I got shivers every time. Every time she was like, oh, come on, I'm just having fun. Everything was affecting Korede way more than Ayoola. For me, the tragic thing about this book is how Korede views herself as less than Ayoola based purely and solely on her physical appearance. She herself believes it. And because she believed it, and because Ayoola believed it, and because their mother believed it, and because everyone in this whole story seemed to believe it, I started to believe it, right? So much so, and let me just explain what I mean by that. So much so that when Ayoola turned up at the hospital where Korede works, I felt a kind of anxiety. I was like, get her out of here before Tade sees her. She's too sexy. She's too attractive. Get her out of here. I can't let Tade see her. I know Tade's a good guy. I know he's a good guy. But Ayoola, she's too seductive. It's like she's got some sort of witchcraft. And the witchcraft is beauty. And this part of the story, for me, is what is so heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for a few reasons. Number one, obviously, because Tade chooses Ayoola over Korede. That's heartbreaking. Number two, that her sister would do that to her. Number three, that Korede believed that Tade wasn't like other men. She even says that there's a part in the book, Ayoola says, Tade is just like all other men. He only wants a pretty face. And then Korede says, no, you're wrong about Tade. He isn't like other men. But the tragedy is that Ayoola is right and Korede is wrong. Where is the justice? To add more tragedy to it, Ayoola takes Tade and Tade is nothing to Ayoola, whereas he is everything to Korede. And finally, listen, Korede is a good person. She deserves more and she just gets nothing. And the biggest tragedy of all is that I think, although, yes, this book is about a serial killer and the sister of a serial killer, the true story of this book is the battle for Korede's soul. Does she hold on to her moral compass and her belief that some people are good? Or does she start to see the world through the lens that Ayoola sees it through? That all men are the same. And the only true merit that a person can have is physical beauty. And in the end, Korede agrees with Ayoola. And that's heartbreaking. And I think that's the reason that in the end, Korede covers for Ayoola because she sees that she is right. If you're young and you're beautiful, you can do whatever you want. And if you're not, then you lose. That's the opinion of the book, not my opinion. Okay, so now let's have some fun and have a breakdown of my personal ratings for My Sister the Serial Killer. Okay, number 1, plot. I would give the plot 4 stars out of 5. And the reason is that, like I say, it's a short book, but it packs in a lot of, not exactly what I would call twists, but there are a lot of plot points that drive the story forward. And there's a lot of intricate little details that challenge the genre of a murder thriller. So yeah, I think it was very good. 4 stars out of 5 for the plot of the book. Characters, I will give it a 4.5 for the characters. Korede was a protagonist that I could really root for. Ayoola was a terrifying antagonist. Tade subverted all expectations that I had, and the mother was just horrible, but in a way that was interesting. Setting, 5 stars out of 5. As I mentioned before, Nigeria played such a key role in this story. The presence of the corrupt police, the family responsibilities, the expectations that are placed upon women. I think it was key that this was set in Nigeria. Originality is 4.5 stars out of 5. I'm rating this kind of high overall, yeah. But the fact that this book was about a serial killer, but really it's about the impact that physical beauty can have on a person's life. That was something I'd never read before. So yeah, originality, you can't really question it. It's 4.5 stars out of 5. And overall, I would also give it 4.5 stars out of 5. It's one of the better books that I've read this year. But let me ask you a question, and I really am curious about what your answer is. If you were in Korede's exact situation, would you cover for your sibling, or would you turn her in, or him in, depending on if you have a brother or sister, would you turn them in to the police? And for another book review of another psychological thriller, you can click up here. Thanks so much for watching. Happy reading. I'll see you in the next one.